Hey, it's Shabes, and welcome to another edition of AniTube Digest, where we go over the best and not so best anime YouTube videos to come out this week from the 17th of January to the 24th of January. No videos this week that are not good. That's okay. I don't like watching mid. This first, we're going to talk about some videos I thought were decent. Pretty good. The first one I wanted to talk about was this channel that I wasn't actually familiar with, but it seems to be an older channel. This guy, Teiraa. And it was because I think someone on Twitter retweeted it or something. I just kind of stumbled on it. But, like, it seems to be kind of one of the older OG anime YouTubers. Because, like, you look at the comments and, like, Baron J and Holden and Louis Talks Anime and Otaku Versus, they're all be like, hey, welcome back! You know, and all these, you know, all the guys that were, like, really active and popular, and, you know, popular, I guess, but, like, really active on an anime YouTube back in like 2012, 2013, 2014 type of thing. A decade at this point. But 2012 is a decade ago. No, but and he had like 11,000 subscribers, but only this video on his channel. But then when I just watched it this morning, he had two other videos that I imagine he just unlisted all of his videos, I guess. But he does have two videos back up, which is his experiences at Anime Expo from 2018 and 2019. But he has this video out. I wanted to come back. Reject Modernity, Embrace Anime. And he's talking about Nanberu Kido Desu Ka from 2018? When is that show from? It's not a new show. It's definitely not. Let me see. 2019. Stuff gets, you know, stuff blends together these nowadays. But yeah, but it was just kind of a general video talking about the show and just the philosophy about like fitness and working out and things like that and getting those gains and the yokes and the things. He has like this like chair with a green screen and he's talking with like a mic and everything, and it's got the Nakey Jakey kind of vibes, but he doesn't really show up to it. He's not really in the frame through the whole thing the way Nakey Jakey does it. He just kind of has that at the beginning and a little bit in the middle and end, basically. But for the most part, it's very like clip selection and some other like kind of cool like muscle, like what is Pumping Iron, and some other clips like that. There was, and it's funny, I actually started kind of weight training and doing my own kind of similar things that this video is preaching. Is like, this is the kind of the cool stuff or whatever. And it, like, there was this one clip that he showed of like a guy doing a squat and collapsing, doing too much weight, and it was scary. It was really bad. It looked really bad. That was that was difficult to watch. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting, at least coming from that perspective, and because I've started to do that myself and having a particular food plan and getting the gains and things like that, and it's about sort of self-improvement and things like that. You know, I don't have too much to say, but it felt kind of in and out the other for me, a lot of it, but it was just kind of nice to see that you know, this creator that I had not heard of but was active for a while at the time, and then people, you know, he's still like around when he just kind of started to make videos again. I think that was just really cool. I liked that. You know, and I enjoyed the video a good deal. Looking forward if he decides to make more, but you know, it could just be kind of like a one-off, similar with like Demolition D or something. But no, I enjoyed it. It was cool to see him back, I guess. Despite not having like a frame of reference of being back, he was just sort of a new guy to me otherwise. So, but I enjoyed it. It was a good video. So there was two videos that kind of came out that are similar, but I'll talk about this one and then the other one a little later because I thought it was more interesting. But this Crunchyroll video of how motion captures changed anime, of talking about the Blade Runner Black Lotus anime, and it pretty much exclusively focuses on the motion capture of the show and the differences of that and the actors' experience of it. And there was a lot of talking heads and, you know, a lot of people, and most of them were speaking Japanese and one of them was English, which was interesting. I like some of the insights and some of the challenges they were facing, and, you know, the insight of this show in general. I think that, like, when it was just that one subject, it did feel kind of a little more hands off and a little more typical of a special feature, I guess, where kind of just talking about like the actors' experiences of this thing and not as much the technical aspect, or going into some certain nitty-gritty stuff. But it was pretty general and pretty thorough in some ways, with like talking about like the drama. There was like a drama team and an action team where there's two different people playing the same character, because the actors are hard to be the characters, but they can't do these action scenes, so they have like kind of like stunt doubles basically. So I thought that was interesting. Little insight from the directors, Kamamiya and I forget the other guy's name, but they're fairly well-known names, and that was pretty interesting. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool, and you don't see this sort of thing very often. So yeah, that was it. That was cool. I enjoyed that. I don't have too much to say about it, unfortunately, but yeah, it was neat. There's another channel that's been around, and I'm aware of it, but like I didn't know he had like multiple. It's funny, he doesn't link his other channels or anything, and I had to like find his. I had to kind of do some sleuthing basically to be like, oh yeah, it's Groundline Review basically. But this channel is Dude in a Room, and I think he pretty much is doing talking about YouTube and other YouTube creators in the same way, in a different way, where there's like he has his own kind of One Piece review channel, and he has his other things, but he's sort of like very multi-channel, like kind of YouTuber type of thing, it seems. But that's cool. But he's talking about this other booktuber that I am familiar with. I don't think I've talked about any of her videos necessarily, but he's talking about Murphy Napier, who's done a lot of like One Piece analysis content. She's finally caught up and everything. And he was talking about like the some of the challenges that she faces as a content, like, oh, you're building this audience for One Piece, and then it's like, do you want to turn into a manga channel? What do you do with those channels? You're kind of dividing your audience and things like that. And the steal this, like the thumbnail, I think he's talking about the hand gestures, and it's like, oh, it's showing how she's feeling about the thing, whereas she's talking and giving the information type of thing, and that's interesting. I did think about like when he was talking about the backgrounds of being like blah or whatever. I was being a little self-conscious of MySpace with Digest and everything, where it's like, oh, is it flattering in this way or whatever. I mean, it's kind of doing with what you have, but like I take a lot from Trixie, where people don't care as much about that as they care about what's being said and the content, and even like the camera, or even Casey Neistat says a similar thing, where the story is kind of the focal point. So people, I do think that like if you watch a lot of YouTube, then yes, I think if it's not very good lighting or there's certain things about it, then I can understand it being kind of like blah, and you might move on to something else. At the same time, though, it's like, it's interesting. But I did like the insight. So, oh, he's using the rule of thirds and focus and the choice of bookshelf, and he was kind of analyzing those aspects, because a lot of her content is very similar. It's just the same kind of shot, and just talk. It'd be like talking about Anthony Fantano's content and talking about like the shelf in the back and the way his framing and things like that. He doesn't go into specific videos, but he does talk about specific thumbnails, which I also appreciated. Did like the postage stamp test and talked about that a little bit. Critiqued it in ways, giving like feedback. In terms, I think it was like. I think he chose this particular creator based on his audience's feedback, or like, oh, you wanted me to talk about this channel or something. I don't know. Although I also did like the point of self-reflection that he gave with, he was mentioning how she doesn't talk down to her audience, and he says that like, I've gotten some feedback from my audience where I sometimes come off as pretentious or elitist about or authoritative. And he's like, yeah, I'm trying to work on that. And then I think that was a good moment of self-reflection and transparency, because that's the sort of thing that like you don't normally get from media, and it's something you get specifically from YouTube, is where like a creator is very open and transparent about growing and being a creator that's learning as they're going, basically. Yeah, I generally liked the video. I thought it was a good insight and stuff, and looking forward to more of his content in this particular space. I don't watch a lot of his One Piece stuff yet because I'm not caught up. I just started Alabasta, and you know, he was talking about how like a lot of people have an appeal, and this next video I'm about to talk about has the same idea, where like apparently what's really big on YouTube right now in terms of analysis is like people's first experience of something, and going on and binging and talking about their experience as they go. So it makes me feel kind of left out of like, oh man, maybe I should maybe I should make something like that about my experience with One Piece so far, but I don't really want to. I like just kind of enjoying it, and then when I'm got to the end sort of deal, or when I'm caught up, then I might say some stuff. I don't know, or maybe not. Again, I don't necessarily enjoy talking about something as it's coming out. Maybe before it's come out, which I've done with Tonegawa, but for the most part, I like talking about things when they're in some semblance of done, kind of deal. Anyway, but it just got me thinking, where I'm like, oh man, I'm in that position now, and I could be taking advantage of that because there's an audience for that. At the same time, do I really want those people? Do I really want that audience? Yeah, not really, not especially hearing how like how the community is right now, which I'll talk about in a second. But yeah, no, I enjoyed the video a good deal. I actually had more to say about it than I was expecting. That's good. Yeah, and this is sort of related to it. RogersBase put out a current state of the One Piece community video, and I just thought this was interesting because it was more of a metatextual talking about the community side of things and what the temperature's like. Because I have been noticing that a little bit on Twitter. Not that I follow a bunch of One Piece accounts, but fucking Twitter found out that I'm watching One Piece, and now it's showing me stuff on the timeline that's One Piece related. And like, great. Getting spoiled in places a little bit here and there, but I'm trying not to look too closely at some of these things. But I have seen some of that pushback, a lot of with like Wano and kind of the consternation of the arc and being too long and not going in places what they wanted it to go or something. And so Roger is sort of addressing this and talking about these two sides of the two major groups that are at odds with each other. Is the people, and he's really just talking about the people who love One Piece. He's not really addressing anybody who's trying to be a hater or anything like that, but it's the people who really like One Piece but have a lot to say about it, and part of that is criticism and like, oh, this could have been done better, and they have certain expectations for Oda after having experienced so much of his story. They know that he can do better moments or better characters or better this, that, and the other thing. And so there's a bit of like criticizing in the direction or the outcome of these certain things, the execution. But then there's this other group that's, I think Roger's kind of pointing out as kind of being the more toxic ones in this instance, of being the ones that they just want to enjoy One Piece. They just want to go do it at like enjoy it as it comes out and not speculate or criticize. And like, you know, it's more just like I'm usually in that other camp actually, where it's like I just want to enjoy it and that sort of thing, because I feel like when you start to criticize it, even if it's out of a place of love, I do think some people take it too seriously and it ends up coming off way more as consternation and can become kind of toxic. But I can understand where Roger's coming from, where it can be toxic the other way, where you're just shutting down conversation and being dicks about it. And yeah, that's totally valid as well. I really like the little moment of self-reflection he has as well, where he's like, I actually distanced myself from talking about One Piece for a long time, because there was this moment where there's a certain plot point that he talks about that he was very not happy about, didn't like it. And he said something along the lines of like, if you enjoy this plot point, you're not a real One Piece fan. And he got a lot of backlash for that, and he's like, yeah, rightfully so. It's not a nice thing to say, and I was wrong for that, and I'm trying to learn and like do better, and I think he has done better. But you know, I think that was interesting, a point of self-reflection and bringing that up, and also kind of why he's distanced himself in this way. No, I enjoyed the conversation, and I always really like Roger's delivery of things and like his energy and passion for this stuff. I also just was like, you know, I'm gonna like what I'm gonna like. His sort of like thing with he's like, he gets made fun of all the time for being such a fanboy, or like such a Nintendo fanboy, or he likes Disney's Frozen and things like that. And he's like, well, I'm gonna like what I'm gonna like, and I, like it's that you're not that doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything, or basically. Um, and I don't know. I appreciate that attitude personally. But I like him sticking up for certain creators, name dropping them, and being like, "Hey, they've been doing this thing," and um, lay off them, kind of in terms of like, if they have problems with One Piece, they can have problems with it. Um, and yeah, it's like go to other creators that don't say those things or whatever, and he's exploring it in different ways, and I just thought it was really interesting and cool. Yeah, I enjoyed it a good deal. Rekka from Anime Back When, the novelty in kids ages 15 through 17, why you don't quit anime. It's a very rambly video. I'll admit, it just sort of like kind of washes over, and it's just like, I'm just rambling now and things. And but that's fair. And I actually really like the creative decision of just like it's him talking into a microphone, and I assume it's unscripted, but the visuals he chooses for this is like just filming himself eating like a kind of a kid's breakfast, like some mini waffles and like some cereal or whatever. Yeah, I feel that. I have a very children's breakfast as well. I do relate as an adult myself. But like, I don't have, it really came like, I don't remember too much of the things he was saying, and he's just being like, hey, do you remember when you were a kid and this and that? And I also really I remember this one point he was saying, it was just like, why is it that we didn't grow out of anime? There's some people that have, and they're nostalgic for it, but they don't just keep going with it. They just like, they've moved on. I think that does speak to the shelf life of a lot of anime fans, where like the average shelf life is like two or so years, where like they get super into it and then they just kind of burn out, or they're not as interested or whatever, and they move on to something else. Like that totally happens a lot. And I think the things that like, the two things I would say to it is like, why didn't why didn't we grow up from the things we liked when we were a kid? It's like, technically, yes, I was a kid when I watched some of these shows, but it was always through osmosis. I never really got into anime in the same way until high school, pretty much, is when I was starting to like it, and like was like watching these full shows and things like that. And then college is when I actually really got into it in the same way. And then I was already like an adult when I was like finding a lot of this stuff, even if it's for kids in the same way. Yeah, and so that I just kind of fell into it in the same way, where like it wasn't since I was a kid or anything like that. And that's my personal experience, and it's obviously different for a lot of people. What was the other thing I was thinking? Where was nostalgia? That's what it was. The other observation, I think, and what kind of caused me to stick with anime as long as I have, is because I wasn't just kind of watching the popular things or the things that like were coming out seasonally and just sort of being in the it crowd. I think the it crowd, that you can only last for so long. Like it takes, it's only interesting for so many years, I think. For some of the people who have been doing it constantly, and the seasonal anime is just their thing, then it's like, hell yeah. But like, to me, I think the older titles and like stuff from like going into anime's past and looking at stuff from like the 90s, 80s, 70s, I think is what really has cauterized it for me and has really like kept me around for the most part, because I see the whole vastness of it and the history and everything, and that makes me want to like explore it more, and that just more into it, you know what I mean, instead of being in more of a passive kind of like because like I'm not into Bionicle the same way as I used to be, because like when it was at the time, and I think a large part is because like there was years where I wasn't as into it or something, like 2008 or 9, I think, like towards the back end, I think, but I was also older and didn't have the money to buy those figures and things like that, and I don't know, things like around that time. Yeah, I don't know, those sorts of things move on. That sort of thing moves on. There's some people that are still adults that still consume it, so it's just an interesting thing to talk about. Again, I'm sorry I'm not engaging with this as much as of what you talked about as you said, I think. But I just enjoyed it, and Also, it did have me the same vibes as like Trixie's After Dark channel with like just talking and you know, just talking really casually and things like that. But I think it was a good approach to be able to just talk into a microphone and edit that way. And then the visuals are not something that's not so hard, difficult, and kind of easy to produce. And it's just pretty much a one take of like just eating. And, you know, I thought it was kind of neat. Yeah, I enjoyed it a good deal. It was nice. I think I've said that multiple times. I am so sorry. I have to give variety to my words sometimes. Oh well. And a decent is Gigguk's Best of Anime 2021. Yeah, I've been pretty disappointed or like lukewarm to a good deal of these best things that he's really known for. He's been doing these for almost 10 years. These specific videos. I think the first one he did was 2013. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did a 2012 one. That'd be crazy. I have to look. But I have to scroll a lot way down though. Oh man. He actually has this 1,000 subscriber special still on his channel. That's pretty epic. Trying to find it. See if he... Yeah, I think Anime in 2013 was the first time he did that. The series. And those videos are so legendary to me. But then, yeah. 2021... He does the same thing he did last time, which I'm not a big fan of, and I've probably talked about it in the last video, the last time I talked about this thing from him, where it's just like a list. It's like a top 16. But you know, in this instance, I actually found it really nice because it was just so positive pretty much the whole way through, and he does talk very generally about some of these shows, and kind of sometimes feels a little surface level, or kind of just generic or something, but that's okay. I think as long as he's talking kind of positively or just kind of showcasing some of these shows, it was nice to see some things like Nomad and Sunny Boy in a video like this, and it was surprising too, where some of them were like sequels that he doesn't have much to talk about, but he actually still puts Attack on Titan in there, and what was the other one that was like a sequel? Oh, like, yeah, like Nomad, of course. But that was nice. And of course, like with Alan, and he also has Abi editing this, so I imagine it was like the intro and outro, which are very montagey and epic and very cool editing there. You're insane for how many titles they're showing on screen, and the variety and the synchronicity with all those. I cannot begin to think of doing something like that. I am tasked with doing something similar to that, for something that is a different thing. It's a whole other thing. But I'm definitely taking notes. I'm definitely checking that out. That's something else. And then, yeah, I think the rest of it's really fun and really polished and nice. But you know, I was also comparing, I was like putting it on mute and kind of appearing at the other previous videos that I was having problems with. And I think it's because those previous videos were so much more memey. He's just using so many more memes and like buzzwords and things like that. I think this one, it seemed like he had a little more originality, or just like not as joke. Like some of the jokes are very like at his expense and very earnest and the same kind of corny. But they're not just like relying on reaction images or GIFs and little vines and things like that. Not as much. There's still probably a couple in there, but it didn't feel as burdensome, I guess. And then again, I just like the general positivity to the whole thing. I did just enjoy the video. I think it was a comfy time. Yeah. It also just made me really want to check some of these shows out. I think like Vivi in particular, I think his selling of that and the clips that they show, I think we're just like, wow, that does seem really pretty good. But it's just, I don't know. I just want to have a personal interest in some of these shows, I guess. I don't know. It's difficult for me at this point. I have reasons for not checking these things out, I guess, even though I am interested in some capacity. Anywho, yeah, good video. I enjoyed it, and the best of time for the rest of the year for you. Okay, and now what I thought were the best videos of the week. The ones where I was just like, wow, damn, that's incredible, or just whatever. And Yeah, and also I'm sorry this digest is very short. I think it's because it's like I've found myself very busy this week. Very busy. Trying to get a lot of stuff done, and digest last week took most of my day, and I didn't like that. So it's already 10 a.m. and I'm already almost done recording it. I'm like, yes, I'm gonna have this out by 12. Let's go. Anyway, best of week. Tomorrow's Joe 2. Episode 2 for some reason, not episode 1. I don't know why, but TMS is officially uploaded the second episode for some reason of Ashino Joe 2, which is really exciting and surprising. They do this for a couple of shows, but yeah, I don't. There's a playlist that it's attached to, and it has a couple other videos, like 3 videos, but 2 of them are hidden, I guess. So I'm like, okay, they're gonna do more. But that's exciting. And the subtitles are the same that were on Crunchyroll originally. It's the same translation, timing or whatever, but the style is a little different, just a little different. There's something about like it feels a little more condensed or something. But it's the same translation, which is fantastic. I love that particular translation. It's the one I've watched originally, and I think is fantastic and good. But this is just really cool and exciting just to see this episode being uploaded. I usually don't comment on these sorts of uploads because this happens a lot. Like it just happened with Retro Crush uploading Magnetic Rose to their channel, which is cool. But this is my favorite anime of all time, fellas. I'm just saying. This is literally my favorite anime, period. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to talk about it. It's just like, oh, fucking cool, exciting, yay. Otaku Box. This was the channel, I'm pretty sure, where they had this video of like their whole thing in screen caps. Like they just did a bunch of screen caps for their thing. Am I right about that? No, it's a different channel. I did talk about their Kino's Journey video. But let me see, what was it? Is that right? No, yeah. Okay, yeah, sorry, my bad. I was confusing with somebody else's. But this reminded me in the same way, actually, just the way it was, it's an AMV of every anime that Otaku Box watched, and I just think it was really interesting and a unique way to do this sort of video of like a retrospective of 2021. It goes by really quick. There's just a lot of clips, and it has a kind of a frantic pace to it, but I think that makes it really interesting. I really like all the text effects you had, and like putting them in certain little hidden corners and little places and things like that, making it kind of integrated with the footage. And also a lot of the masking that was being done here is really impressive. Some of the cool stuff is really nice without being like super like out there, not like insane, but still really impressive and good. And I just really liked it. I don't have too much to say about it, unfortunately, other than that. I did enjoy this video. It's really cool. I'm very impressed by the editing here, and the eye for these things, and the flow for it. It was cool. Yeah, sorry, I don't have too much to say about it, but I liked it a lot. I really, really liked it. What a bombshell from Ygg Studio. I hate Digibro. And I watched this live, like premiered it as it premiered, and no warning, just showed up, and I was like, yeah, sure. And it was an hour and 41 minutes. And I don't think anybody knew, so we were just like, all right, we're into it. And Trixie just goes over literally everything of the from the beginning of when she started making videos to kind of when she blew up, and what her mental state was at that time, and where her perspective was in that period. Even goes into like some of the breakups of like some of the friendships that have been kind of discontinued, like the ending of Content, and some of the procrastinators drama, I guess. But the kind of the gist of this is just that like Digibro was a character that Trixie was playing pretty much this whole time. Not like it, but like it reminded me actually of this movie that I cannot shut up about, and I've already watched it twice, and I'm going to watch it the third time at the end of this week, and I highly recommend you watch it. Is a movie called My Dinner with Andre, and it's a 2-hour movie of 2 people having a conversation at dinner. That's it. They don't cut away to anything. it's literally just the conversation, and it films it, and it's sort of like a progenitor podcast of sorts. Like, it was made in 1981. It's very similar to a podcast in that way, but it was before podcasts were really a thing, and it's really amazing. And one of the things that you learn about after the fact, this is not like information in the movie itself, but the two actors who are performing in it, it's their names, like they're using their real names for the characters, and they both wrote it, like they're it's their own words and partially from their own experiences. But they said that one of the challenges in making that movie was that they had to not be playing themselves, they had to be playing a character who was based on themselves. And I think Digibro was a character, but it was in some way based on Trixie's real experiences. Because then how else did it end up being so impactful and genuine and everything? It's not like everything was lies, but it was an amplified, kind of an exaggerated version of them. There was a comment that I read after the fact where someone related to the experience that Trixie's relating here to Joji and Filthy Frank, where Filthy Frank is a character, but they're playing it so authentically, or like it seems so legitimate that it doesn't seem like a character, and then they make a clean break from that character and people miss it and everything, but they're doing their own thing now, and it's very similar, I think. But this has just more of a honest and it's a much better than like what initially happened with that video announcing that here's the rebranding and all the videos are getting privated and here's this Void Gazers thing, and we're like, what? It was really jarring for it. But the thing is I think Trixie is super honest with a lot of this. It's like, this is just how it happened. It really was just incredibly quick, and there was no context or information that's being held. It really was just these people came into my life and these people left my life, and that was just really quick and everything. I also just like the honesty of, like, in this period of 2016 where it was kind of at the height of her career, she had no idea what she was doing. They just didn't have an idea of what to do next, and it was very erratic. And I think that's what made it exciting for people, including myself, because we just didn't know what to expect. But I totally get that. I think a lot of content creators can relate to this, of like, I look like I know what I'm doing, but I don't really, or I totally get that. And it's really interesting seeing her perspective here. And I think a lot of people appreciate it too. It seems that it's being pretty well received. And I do think it's really good that she's been developing this anime alphabet thing and sticking with it. I do think it does explain why she was trying all these different experiments, and there was all these series, but it didn't like go anywhere in places. And then Anime Alphabet is like the thing that's like, oh, I can do this consistently, and people have been enjoying that content and stuff like that, and it just seems much better. There's her significant other isn't as present and involved as her previous partner was. And sort of giving that perspective of why Trixie tried that in the first place, of why she was trying to integrate May so much, of like, because we're there to make content, and that's our way of having a relationship, and the sort of like in working with Nate or Jess, that's like we're meeting not just to hang out, we're meeting because we're making something. And that's an interesting perspective. I can totally see that. I can also see where that can be kind of problematic or hard to, it can lead to some issues, I think. But like, I also get the perspective of why you want to do that, because content creation is such a lonely profession. It is really just, I'm alone in my room right now. I am alone. I don't feel as alone because I know this is going to an audience that is going to listen. in reality, but it is sort of like, especially when you're editing this, it's sort of just like solitary, and so you want to be making stuff with other people. It's so fulfilling to make it with other people, because it feels like it's a shared experience and you don't feel as alone, really. But I can understand that, really. And this is all framed from like talking about a comment it seems very emblematic of a lot of people's perspective of like, oh, I used to like your old content and things like that, when you were just a lonely, sad otaku in your room. And Trixie's like, well, like, I'm not that anymore, like, sorry. Like, and I was saying in the comments too that I was like, I think it's too bad, because a lot of people are craving that. They're craving some creators who are sad, lonely otaku like them, that they can relate to and they can kind of and articulate in some way. The problem is there are creators like that. Those people are definitely out there, but they're not getting the same audience as Trixie because they're not as well articulated. They don't have all this practice from writing blogs from 2006 to 2014, before she started making videos. They haven't done all that practice, and so they're not as well articulated or are able to give the right thing to say, basically. They're not as good at it, basically. So that's sort of the difficult thing. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I just really liked it. Appreciated the honesty and the ruminations of it, and this is obviously something that people have been missing as well. I think it is just like Trixie turning on a camera and doing something. There was this and just talking. There was a video, I don't remember if it was before the big Ygg thing or like the big transition or something. I don't remember, but it was some sort of small video where Trixie was just going around and just like, it was her, like, just her day or something. I forget what it was, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna do this today or whatever. I don't remember. And of course it could be very much unlisted or wherever or something. I don't know. That's fair. But no, yeah, I really enjoyed that. It was a good time. And I'm probably gonna give as much as I love that the big Ygg video, I do want to give the credit to Funimation here for giving this another behind the scenes video, but for the making of Sunny Boy. And it's mostly Shingo Natsume just in front of the camera and just talking about the conception of it and why he made it, the philosophies when making it, the things he was trying to avoid, the specific challenges he wanted to try to tackle with it. There were certain things about Sunny Boy that I had no idea about, that I thought were really interesting. I wish he talked about the music, because the music is incredible. The music is really good, and I just wish that was an aspect that was explored a little, or at least mentioned. But he does talk about how like anime is made by a lot of different people, and they all bring different whatever. And like it was interesting with that every episode was a different animation director. I don't think I actually realized that, because it does seem kind of cohesive, but he's like, I don't want it to feel cohesive in like a straight line type of thing. Like it all feels very flat. I like things that have dynamics, and I'm like, well, this show is insane. This show is like really wacky and whatever, and it does have a lot of consistent, interesting animation choices, including like having characters that are in the distance not have any backgrounds, and they just feel like kind of no outlines, and they're just painted and everything. And I don't know, the way that was depicted in pretty much all the episodes when that happened was consistent, but it was really interesting, and I love the look of the show. The backgrounds are really lively and interesting. I like their commentary on the character designs, because the originals are by Iguchi, who's Stop Hibari-kun author, but the actual character designer that takes those original designs and converts them into the animation. I don't know if it was the same guy as Aka. I always felt like it was very similar. I was like, some of these characters are very much like Aka, which is also a Shingo Natsume work, I believe. Am I right? I don't remember. I'm not looking. Sorry. I could probably, maybe it just reminded me of that. I really liked the interviewing of some of the animators. or I think they were just animation directors as well, but they happened to key animate things, and they were talking about very, very specific scenes, and they're like, oh, this is how I wanted to do this scene. One of them was describing this instance where he's like, I didn't really know how to draw this part, and so there was a moment where like very, very short notice and like kind of cutting close to the deadline sort of thing is like I completely redrew the whole thing and just changed this and changing all that and describing that. It makes you realize where it's like some of these choices can be last minute, and some of it's to the wire and everything like that. And it gives there's a dynamic here that nothing, art like this is not planned and as intricately as you would assume. It is very much kind of on the fly or just like thinking of things, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work, and that is how it happens. I think the end result is incredible. I really do like Sonny Boy a lot, and I was really interested in the creation process. There was a bit of a stir that this caused as well on Twitter. I think it was Geth that like tweeted about this chunk that Shingo Natsume talked about, where there's a trend in anime of a lot of characters monologuing, and he's like, I want to try to avoid that because I don't think it's very interesting. And he was just like, yeah, like, and then there was a little bit of pushback where it's like, well, it does depend on the situation, and it does depend on the writer. If the writer if you like the character's writing, or like the things that they are saying, or perhaps it's articulated in a very visually interesting way. I think some people were bringing up Sangatsu no Lion as an example. I haven't seen Sangatsu no Lion, so I have no horse in this race. But I do like the having more of an open-minded thing and not being like internal monologue bad or like show don't tell, that sort of thing. I don't like ascribing to that, because having rules for art means that you can fail, or it means that there's a wrong way to do this art, and I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think any of this art can be appreciated or it can accomplish what it's setting out to do. Having the rules are there so that this is the best possible way. Like, they're guidelines, they're not rules, I was thinking, it reminds me with working at my camp. I'm a rifle instructor. I'm NRA certified, and I teach people how to shoot guns. And the thing that my personal perspective, and the thing is that like a lot of instructors are different, and ranges are run in different ways, as long as it's being safe and as long as people are having a good time, and that it's safe, more important than having fun, honestly. As long as that's happening, right? It's sort of everything else is sort of like up to the individual and just up to the person running it. And we have particular rules because these are the ones that we know work and that are very universal, and these are the rules that we do because we know this is the best possible way that we've thought of. If there was a better way to do this, then we can do that, but in terms of, besides the rule, like, those are rules, right? Those are there for safety and everything like that. But I was thinking more about like proper a proper shooting position, right? Like, in terms of like the best optimal way of shooting a gun in whatever position you're in, whether it's like bench rest or whatever. Stop. What I personally like doing is just like the way I teach people the proper shooting position, because you can technically shoot as long as you're following our rules and you're shooting in a safe way, as whatever's most comfortable for you. If you think if you think you're going to get a better shot by using your other eye instead of your dominant eye, instead of the eye that is most likely, like we tell you is like, oh, shoot with your dominant eye. But if you want to use your other eye, I'm not going to say you're wrong. I'm just going to be like, it's going to be like, oh, why aren't I hitting the target? Well, maybe because you're using this eye and not this eye. Like, usually, but the thing is, right, if they're getting results, right, if they are hitting the target, or if at least that they're having a good time and they feel comfortable with using this other eye instead of the eye that we suggest them use, who am I to wag the finger at them? You know what I mean? Or like, having their foot up on the whatever, so long as they're pointing the gun in a safe direction, their fingers off the trigger until it, and it's unloaded. I know this is not anime, I'm sorry. So long as those big 3 rules are being followed, I'm fine. It's like you can, as long as you're having a good time, right? And whatever. But if you're like, why aren't I hitting the target? Then it's like, well, this is these particular rules where it's like you having breath control, a hold control, you're using both of the sights here, using your dominant eye, things like that. You're having a proper shooting position where your feet are firmly planted on the ground, or maybe if you're doing shotgun, you're like leaning into it. We're giving you these tips because this is what a lot of people use that get them results. They get them the results they want. They hit the target, they hit the clay or whatever. We tell you this stuff because this is probably the best way to do it. But especially if it's like shotgun and it's like an individual and you can coach an individual or something and they're not hitting a target, even if it seems like they're doing a lot of things right, they're like, okay, try this, try doing a little bit like this, or feel something out. Because basically you have to try to find the thing that gets the results and then keep doing that thing, and then just do that again. Like whatever you did, do that again, sort of thing. So I like the reason I'm bringing that up is to bringing that back to art where, so long as it's getting a good response from the audience, they're having a good time, they're being entertained or being enlightened or emotionally moved by it, there shouldn't be any rules, right? Because literally this movie, My Dinner with Andre, to bring that as well, that I mentioned earlier, My Dinner with Andre, there's no showing. I'm not kidding. Like, he's telling these stories. He tells multiple of these incredibly vivid, harrowing, or interesting and wild fucking stories where he's going to the Sahara Desert and this other thing, but they don't show any of it. All they show is him telling these stories at the dinner table, but it's the most fucking amazing and like vivid and cool thing because the audience is able to picture that. And so, like, that's literally breaking the rule. Like, that's shattering the rule of show, don't tell. It's all tell. It's literally all tell. But it's a great movie. Wow. Imagine. It's like, these are guidelines where it's like, it's usually more effective to show the audience rather than tell us about it. And there's a lot of instances like that you can show. It is a decent guideline, but it's not a rule. You know what I mean? Anyway. Just like a kind of a thing where he's talking about like monologues, and that's his personal. And again, I like that Shingo Natsume frames it as like, I never find those things very interesting, so I'm going to try to avoid that and try to do something different. So that's great, and that's why I just really enjoyed it, and I also liked it a little more than the Crunchyroll video because it was more it was longer, first of all, but also it just felt a lot more specific, nitty gritty, talking about very particular shots and like his philosophy, and kept mostly to Shingo Natsume the entire time, and I appreciated that. Whereas like it was kind of bouncing around a lot of people and showing a lot of things in the Crunchyroll video. It felt more of like a general, I'm trying not to say generic, but kind of generic sort of behind the scenes video. Although as much as I do appreciate it, it was cool. But this, I just felt it was really great, and I hope that maybe if this is a physical release or something, I hope this would show up on a disc or something. I think that would be cool. Anyway, yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It was, I said that almost every goddamn time. I don't know how to end these segments. I'm sorry. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that installment of AniTube Digest. It was a little shorter one, and I also just rambled about other things that are not the video itself, so I apologize, but I hope you enjoyed it still. Thank you very much for watching. You guys are great. You have a great week. Yo, peace.